WFM 91.7.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Big Question on Women Radio 91.7, Nigeria's only radio station for women and their families. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Today is the day 5 of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. We have been running a 16-day series which started on the 25th of November 2022, of course, and we're running this all the way through to 10th of December 2022. The 16 Days of Activism campaign is an international movement, annual international movement aimed at addressing issues of violence against women and girls. So we're focusing this 16-day series on various organizations as we review their achievements and strategies in the prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls. My name is Sumto Titilayo Ajama, and today my guest is Mary Omoyemi Musa, founder of Mom Enable Foundation and the Secretary General Network of Women with Disabilities. Hello, Mary. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on The Big Question.
Hi, Samta. Good afternoon and good afternoon, Nigeria. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. The number to call to contribute on the program is 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. You can also call in or send in text messages or WhatsApp messages. Send those to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. Now, Mary, I'm coming to you, and I would like, your organization is Mom Enable Foundation, and you're also Secretary General of a Network of Women with Disabilities. So far in your journey with these organizations, how far would you say you've come with regards to fighting against violence against women and girls, living with disabilities particularly?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Well, so far, so not really good. And
Why did you say it that way?
We're trying to be real here, right?
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Fighting gender-based violence in the disability community, and especially with women with disability, is a very huge, dicey, and dodgy task. Because women with disabilities for the longest time have been used to this life. So many times they do not even see it as a problem. So when you're trying to introduce it as a problem, it's almost like shifting them away from the norm. And when you do that, when you try to fight the system fights back. And so that's why I say that, well, so far, not so good. But of course, we have had we've taken some strides and we have recorded some successes, but the major work lies in sensitization, letting them know that this is wrong and it should not be accepted under any circumstance. When people feel like you're doing them a favor, if you throw them anything, they take it as part of the favor, and that's a huge deal in the disability community. But of course, for those who come out to speak, we attend to them as much as we can. We have some success cases with NAPTIC because we've asked NAPTIC to help us at certain cases. We have introduced FIDA to help us also at certain cases. And so far, for the ones that came out to speak, yes, we have been able to record successes. But if people do not come out, then there's nothing we can do.
Absolutely. I can understand that because it still goes back to this culture of silence that is so prevalent in the African community. And you cannot take that away even from people who live with disabilities as well. So that culture of silence definitely still needs to be broken. So let's talk about what measures your organization has taken to put in place to support the fight against ending violence, particularly as it affects people living with disabilities.
Currently, For instance, we are beginning a rally. We are taking a walk against gender-based violence, especially against women with disabilities. It actually started on the 26th, and we are having it up until the 9th of December at several locations. Today we are at Bwari in Abuja here. And we're going to be moving around like that, especially in places that we know that we have a lot of our members. We're visiting those places and we're taking a walk, because when people see that a lot of women have gathered, I mean, they want to know what's going on. And what does it take to stop a whole city from moving? It's just one wheelchair staying in the middle of the road, you know. So when we have all that support for ourselves, then we believe that we can begin to rewrite the narratives. And we in fact, we have started. We also partner with organizations, like I said earlier, NAPTIC. We also partner with other organizations of persons with disabilities. We call them OPDs, such as Sight Savers, you know, and you know, a lot of African women with disabilities, advocacy for women with disabilities. We partner with a lot of these organizations to make sure that we see to, the minimizing of gender-based violence. We really wish it could be completely eradicated, but we understand that it's a journey. But every journey begins with one step, and I assure you that that one step has been taken.
Absolutely. And that's what we need. Those consistent steps that are aimed at ending violence against women and girls living with disabilities, which is the bigger picture at the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I asked you about the culture of silence earlier, and you did make reference to the fact that for people who speak up, those cases have been addressed. But there are people who as well are not speaking up. But if you look at the rate of awareness and the rate of increasing reports that we get every day, would you say that people are beginning to really just speak out and forget about cultural norms and the culture of shame and all of that, and really just break those chains and speak out, and particularly with discrimination as well, considering the fact that there's a lot of discrimination for people who speak out against violence that's perpetrated on them? So would you say that people are successfully breaking the culture of silence now and speaking out in stopping violence against women and girls living with disabilities?
Okay, thank you again. The truth is, like you said, this is a culture. And when you say it's a culture, it has become quote and unquote a norm. It's not a norm in, you know, in the real sense of what should be or what ought to be. But then this is something that we have met. It's an age-long culture. And we understand that you don't break a rock in a day. Geologists will tell you there's several hits that you keep making until you finally do the last one that blows the whole thing up. So for the culture of silence in the disability community, in fact, that's the biggest problem women with disabilities have. Because even when some of them speak up and you take on the case, you would see them come back to you and tell you, you know what, it's okay. It's okay. I'm the one in this, so don't worry about it. It's fine. We know we'll work around it. Your own is getting too much. And all of these things. When you hear these comments, sometimes you want to insist and say, no, it's already with us, we're going to take it up. And they say, no. They start calling at you, they start calling you names. At some point, you get tired and you just drop it. And especially when there's family pressure. When people start calling you from their families to tell you you're interfering in their private lives and all of that, well, everybody has a right to their privacy. So you can only help to the extent that you are not infringing on another right. So for the culture of silence, there's a lot of speaking, awareness, sensitization going on with that. But have we gotten there yet? I cannot say absolutely. I think that where we are now is the point where people speak up and speak loud when stuff has already happened, when things have already gone south. But I think it will be better for us to speak, not especially when things happen, but always holding every case to be a special case. You know,
Okay.
whether we don't really need to wait until things get really bad or even result to death. Things don't need to come up to TV or come into the media for everybody to start speaking. It starts with our environment. It starts with our neighborhood. You hear somebody screaming and then you say it's a flat, so everybody mind their business. Almost like we're losing our sense of humanity and empathy. You know, so for us to break this culture of silence, it's going to take work from everybody. We should not be quick to jump at things only because they've come into the media space. What about the ones that never make it to the media? How attentive are we to them? You know, until we begin to speak to the real issues and go to the root of issues, we may never achieve these things. You know, when a celeb dies from, domestic violence, everybody is speaking, RIP everywhere, everybody is gingering, organizations are coming up. But when your neighbor or your gate man's wife comes to you and tells you she lost her pregnancy because your gate man beat her, you're passive. You're passive in response. So how do you really want us to, break this culture of silence? People will pass on to the next generation what has worked for them. And in the case of the disability community, when it looks like people are doing them a favor by getting married to them, and because we understand that most of the time these violent cases come from their partners, their intimate partners, but they cannot run away because this is the person that is feeding them.
Yes,
This is the
and
person
then they are
providing
pressured
for
to
them.
stay in those relationships.
Exactly. So it's like moving from a bad situation of not being married and then you're a woman with disability to being in a fairly better situation. And so they don't want to go away because they feel, whatever the case, at least I am married, despite the fact that I have a disability. But we're trying to tell them that should not be the case.
Absolutely.
Your disability should not be an excuse for you to, be at the position of even encountering more disabilities. Yes, because if you have one disability and you're living with an abusive partner and it continues to hit on you, the potentials are there that you might sustain another disability.
And nobody wants that.
Exactly.
Nobody wants
multiple
that.
disabilities.
So what more does the organization plan to do in advocating for people living with disabilities? Because I hear the passion with which you speak concerning the people in the disability community, be it male or female, and you can tell that these people are in a very unique situation. And truth be told, however unique the situation, violence is not beneficial for anybody. So it's important that we keep talking about this. And I know your organization has been doing a lot of work in this aspect, but what more do you hope to do going forward to continue this advocacy?
Okay, what we would really need for the society, for organizations to partner with us, there's a lot of misconception, about the disability community. A lot of people think that the disability community is a community that, like when you're operating your phone or any gadget and then it tells you something is disabled or something is enabled. They make it seem like the disability community is such a community that is so backward, so to speak, or should not even enjoy some rights. So when you report certain cases to them, it's like, shouldn't you even be happy that you even have one? That kind of thing. So the society needs to open their heart to receiving the message that organizations like ours are putting forward. That persons with disabilities should no longer be viewed from the charity perspective, but also from the right-based perspective. They are people, and if they are people, they have rights. They have rights to be free of torture. They have rights to live a happy married life. They have rights to be happily married. They have rights to live with non-abusive spouses. So as much as we are putting out these messages, we would love for the society to be receptive. It's one thing to pour water on a horse's back. It's another thing for it to shake it off. And it doesn't penetrate. So we would really love to penetrate the society. And for us to do that, we need strong partnerships. We need voices that can speak for us in these places, such like what Women Radio is doing for us. As I'm speaking here, I'm open to, every Nigerian who is tuned in at the moment. And some people will be getting educated that there are this set of people out there that we really do not consider. And then they suffer triple jeopardy. We like to say that women with disabilities suffer triple jeopardy. One, the existing inequality gaps in gender in Nigeria.
Yes.
Two, they have a disability that they're dealing with. And then three, the society is struggling to grapple with the complexities of their disabilities. You understand? So it's a very, very unique and peculiar case that the society has to give attention to in terms of policies and in terms of implementation.
Absolutely. You speak the 100% truth on that particular aspect. So, are there stakeholders that you intend to work with? Or before you answer that, let me continue open the phone lines in case we have any calls. Please go ahead to call in to 07000 917 917, and you can contribute by calling or sending a message. You can call in to 07000 917 917, or you can also send in a text or WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. It is 24 minutes past 12, and this is still the series on 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. I'm speaking today to Mary Omoyeme Musa, founder of Mom Enable Foundation and the Secretary General Network of Women with Disabilities. So if you feel like contributing, please go ahead and do that. Call into 07000 917 917. Send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. Now, Mary, I was asking about stakeholders that you would like to work with, influencers, people that you know that have a certain level of knowledge and influence in their areas of expertise, that you know that giving work or partnership or collaboration with them can further just take the message even farther when it comes to speaking to more people, a wider reach as regards advocacy against gender-based violence, particularly with people living with disabilities?
Okay, for me and for us in the organization, the media is a very strong tool. I would have called all the organizations that we are intending to partner with, we've written certain letters to them and all that. But then I want to concentrate on the media, because the media is a powerful tool. And the media serves as an intermediary between the government and the people. And the media is the microphone of the individual and the government. And so it's what they amplify that is amplified. And whatever they diminish is diminished. When you keep portraying the picture of a woman with disability as if she's, helpless, awkward, when they want to talk about persons with disabilities, they go to the rural area and pick one awkward, person who, as if there are no poor people who don't have disabilities that are struggling also. So I think the message that the media passes, for instance, a person with disability gets married, you read the headlines and it says something like, finally, a blind woman is getting married. All of these messages, they are very derogatory. So if the media itself can get it right, I believe the society will get it right. So in partnership right now, we want to focus on the media. And Women Radio is doing a good, job. We really appreciate it for bringing us up. But then if other media houses can take this forward, not just with bringing persons with disability up to narrate their needs, but then to portray to the society, how persons with disabilities should be viewed positively. There are people with disabilities who are achieving a lot.
Absolutely, that's true.
There are people with disabilities who are doing incredible things.
Very true.
Why should it only be the people in the rural areas that are living in a hut and all those funny things that we keep portraying in the media?
So that definitely means there's work for the media to do. There's a lot of intentionality that needs to go into the media, portraying the right messaging concerning women and girls living with disabilities.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So we're going to round off very soon, but I would like to take your thoughts on your challenges. So I believe that in your work, as regards speaking against gender-based violence, fighting against gender-based violence, doing program sensitization, all of that, there must have been some gray areas, some challenges that you may have experienced. So what would you say some of those challenges are? And because of time, I'd like to take just two of those challenges specifically. And yes, two of those challenges that hindered that advocacy that you are on along the way, you know, on some level at some point.
Okay, because you say you're taking two, I would like to point the two most important, well, maybe not the most important, but the two that come to my mind right now.
Okay.
First of all, funding. Funding is a big challenge for the disability community because, you know, it's a matter of policy, international standards, global standards, because, you know, we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that universally regulates the affairs of disability. And then we have now domesticated it in Nigeria. We have our own Disability Act now. But then a lot of this reasonable accommodation, and reasonable accommodation is whatever it takes that will accommodate the peculiarity or the needs of the person with disability. So a person with disability, for instance, can go somewhere unaided, but a person with disability cannot go there unaided. The person has to go with somebody. But then providing for that extra, that's what we call reasonable accommodation. And then because we know that a lot of persons with disabilities are not very economically empowered, it poses a big challenge. And then when you approach organizations for funds or their programs that are put in place, they cannot understand why they budgeted for 10 persons with disabilities and they are seeing 20 persons with 20 people coming on board. But the reason you're saying 20 people is because the law even provides that each person with disability has a right to come with an aid.
Exactly. And that should be considered.
So these things can be pretty expensive, we admit. So funding is a huge, because the cost of living for a person with disability is actually like times two. It's relatively higher than a person without this, because you have to put things in place. You have to build systems around your disability for it to be productive. And so if you don't have an employment or you don't have any source of empowerment, it will make life really miserable. And then secondly, another challenge that we face is persons with disabilities themselves understanding that they have rights and they should be advocating for their rights, and that they should be fighting for their rights rather than, taking whatever comes. Like coming out from the understanding that the paradigms have shifted from the charity model to the human right-based model, because it's what you put out there that people would see. Is what you speak up for that people will hear. And then if we do not speak for ourselves, nobody will. We always say that we are our own experts in our issues. And so if we decide not to speak, if we do not understand, what our rights are, and then open up to these changes, there's really nothing that anybody else can do. So I said one, as an external factor, and then the other as an internal factor, as the challenges that I'm speaking on today.
Thank you so much for that. Hopefully, more organizations, even people, individuals as well, and the community included, understands the peculiarities that come along with people living with disabilities and can do better with the relationships, building relationships with them. Now, what would be your call to action or commitment on behalf of your organization, particularly with relation to the 16 days of activism and beyond?
Okay, as an organization, we are committed to fighting against gender-based violence. We have zero tolerance to it. A woman with a disability already has too much she's dealing with, and gender-based violence will not be one of it. So if we hear it, we work on it immediately. So we are strongly committed to fighting against that, and we will not tolerate it. And then we also employ Nigerians to help us to accept the situation, to accommodate the situation, and to give women with disabilities access, to help. If we are ready to be helped and we do not get that access, and the right kind of help, because you can help somebody but give the person the wrong help. Case in point, this is election season. When you visit the disability community and you come and share just rice and beans and you disappear until the next 4 years, you really have not done anything. Because the situation is still there. You're solving momentary problems and you're sacrificing it on the altar of long-term issues that continue to rotate. So we want the right kind of help, and that's our message now to Nigerians during the 16 days of activism. As for us as an organization, we are committed to fighting gender-based violence against our women. We will not tolerate it, and we will do everything, partner with every organization that we can, speak up at every chance we get to make sure that this is brought to an absolute halt.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. All right. Please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
It is important to note that people living with disabilities, specifically women and girls living with disabilities, is a very unique situation. And violence against women and girls with disabilities is a very significant issue that is related to both gender and disability-based discrimination and exclusion. Mary has done a great job explaining that. And combined, these two factors result in an extremely high risk of violence against girls and women with disabilities. So organizations like Mary's Mom Enable Foundation are well placed to enable grassroots initiatives to thrive and to prevent violence against women and girls and people living with disabilities, and also to support victims. So if you notice any form of abuse against women in your community, make sure to report it. Let us unite and be deliberate in eliminating violence against women and girls, and also people living with disabilities. Thank you very much to my guest, Mary Omoyemi Musa, founder of Mom Enable Foundation and the Secretary General Network of Women with Disabilities. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to my producer, Elizabeth Akweribe. Remember to continue conversations like this. Remember to publicize everything that pertains to the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Thank you very much for tuning in again. My name is Sumto Titilayo Ajama. Good afternoon.